down right in the thick of it. It's all a buzz down there at the GM meetings. JP, how's it going tonight?
Doing great. Good evening. Great, as always, to be with you. And yeah, the Mariners have been one of the teams we're talking about a lot here at the GM meetings in San Antonio, where, of course, San Antonio, a long-standing history of, at one point in time, of course, being the AA affiliate of the Mariners, where a young Felix Hernandez once made his name about 20 years ago.
And I think the stadium hasn't been updated since then. But, yeah.
I believe that's correct.
oh, the memories there. But, JP, you did mention something about the Mariners earlier today. You put out there that, they need a second baseman, and you put some info out there about Hye-Seong Kim of the KBO. How do you think he would fit in with this team and, I guess more importantly, with this ballpark?
I think he'd be fantastic, and one of the reasons why is he is very much a contact-oriented player. And we heard the Mariners talk a lot about that a year ago. Didn't quite work out in terms of actually reducing the swing and miss. And by all accounts, he's a lefty bat, pretty good defender. He's not going to be, I don't think, a very expensive player. Certainly it only takes one team to really go to a higher level of years or dollars. But I think a 2-year contract in the range of maybe $6, $7, $8 million a year would be doable for him. And I think that he would do well with that type of contract with the Mariners. He's someone that has occasional power. He can handle velocity and would play a very solid second base. And we know what a difficult position that's been for the Mariners to have some stability. So among many different possibilities, certainly Gleyber Torres is out there. Many other second basemen are people that could play the position. But, yes, Hye-Seong Kim is one of the different possibilities there for the Mariners at this early stage of the offseason.
You might be aware of this, but Alex Bregman is not the most liked out here. Mariners fans have expressed that time to time when he comes up to the plate. But he's a guy that has that long history of winning. He's a free agent, and I know Scott Boras said, hey, he could move around. He could move back over to second base. And we just talked about the Mariners' need for a second baseman. Is that feasible, or where is he likely to end up?
It's a great question. I would imagine that the Mariners will try. I think the Mariners are dealing with a couple things that might push against that a little bit. One is, I think you're right, that for Alex, because he has had to wear the brunt of a lot of the criticism along with Altuve going back to the sign stealing scandal, and really players that have moved on or gone other places, they don't seem to get booed as much as those who have remained in the Houston uniform. And so that's a lot of years where Alex has heard boos in Seattle. And we understand that sometimes, look, Johnny Damon went from playing for the Red Sox to playing for the Yankees. So that if that can happen, then anything could happen. But I think that might in some way be an obstacle. But to me, the bigger obstacle here is that we have seen a lot of players who have gone to Seattle, and Mitch Garver being a recent example, as a free agent and not had great years. Now, is it they're putting too much pressure on themselves? Do they not like the hitting backdrop? There's any number of different theories here in terms of why that is, and we've dissected them on this show before. But the reality is the perception is there, and what happened with whether it was Garver or Polanco didn't exactly help that situation. So I'm sure that the Mariners are there and will be part of that conversation because of their need at the infield positions. But they're going to have to, I think, far and away, just as they did with Adrian Beltre, who admittedly, said to me this winter time or the last couple months how much of a challenge it was for him to adjust to playing in Seattle and putting pressure on himself to try to justify that contract right away. It's a real thing for a player. And so I think for some of those reasons, it's going to be a bit of a difficult stretch for the Mariners to maybe win the bidding for Bregman. But ultimately, you look down at other players that might fit your ballpark better or ball club better or price points better. And I have a lot of confidence in the front office that the lineup is going to be deeper 1 through 9 than it was when the season ended.
So we mentioned one potential free agent from the KBO. There's another Kim out there, Hye-Seong Kim of the Padres. Mm-hmm. Would he be someone the Mariners should be looking at?
Yes, because and one of the reasons why I think he's a really appealing player for the Mariners is that he can move around the diamond. And we talk about certainly, and you hope for a full season of health for J.P. Crawford, but that was an issue for them when J.P. missed some time, how they had to reconfigure the lineup without him. I think that was an issue. And we know well that first base has been an issue for this team. And maybe to that extent, a Christian Walker would also make sense. I think Hye-Seong Kim is more of a natural second baseman shortstop. He can certainly play a really good shortstop. The Padres liked him so much at the position that they moved Xander Bogaerts off of that position last year, which tells you a lot about Hye-Seong as a defender. So I think Hye-Seong Kim, most recently a Padre, would be a great fit for the Mariners. And I would, just as I'm talking about different options here, I think putting Christian Walker at first base would also be a really good fit for them. So the good news is there are a lot of positions the Mariners can upgrade offensively this winter, and the bad news is there are a lot of positions the Mariners can upgrade offensively this winter.
Did you hear anything from the Mariners so far, JP, that makes you think they might depart from their sort of the way they do business in the offseason, that they might be more aggressive? Is there anything that Mariner fans can hold on to in that regard?
Well, I think that it's interesting. Do I expect them to be a player on Juan Soto? No, I don't. Do I expect them to maybe be a player for a Santander or a Christian Walker, both of whom could be players in the $20 million range? Or, and the issue with Hye-Seong Kim, I should mention before I go further, is we did have a fairly significant surgery as the offseason began. So I think that's going to cause a lot of teams to really look carefully at it, especially given how things went for the Mariners with Polanco a year ago, and having that issue and bringing in Polanco and he's not healthy and is not able to really play all that well. So do I think they're going to be different? I think they realized last off season that they left that roster short, and I think if they're being honest with themselves, they didn't exactly set Scott Service up to succeed there. He certainly paid for the failure with his job, but now you're in a situation where it's apparent to the Mariner fans and to the industry at large, and honestly to the agents and all of us who watch baseball, that they're in a unique era of pitching, and they're coming real close to just wasting it. And there's an acknowledgement, or there at least should be, that listen, a dollar that we spend now when our pitching is this good is probably a smarter dollar than 3 or 4 years down the road. And to be honest, if you're not going to spend that money now and really not be a player for at least somebody in the Walker, Santander, Torres class of player, if you're not going to do that, then you might as well trade one of your starting pitchers right now, because you've proven already that you might be able to squeak into the playoffs with this current construction of the team, and maybe you can win a round like they did against the Blue Jays, but you're not going to be able to beat a quality team like Houston in a playoff series or the version of them from a couple of years ago, and you're setting yourself up to consistently come within 1 or 2 or 3 games of a playoff berth and fall short with the current construction of the ball club. So they've got to be better. I think they know that on a deeper level than they did probably in the past, and they had better adjust to that reality, or else they'll have a 2025 that looks and feels a lot like 2023 and 2024.
JP, I think fans out here may be rightfully scarred when you look at some of the past free agent signings and someone you mentioned like Mitch Garver. So when you relate that to Christian Walker and you look at, okay, he's 33, maybe he's past his absolute peak, but he still has great production. Where do you think Walker would be a better signing than some of these past ones, or what makes you not as concerned about him having trouble fitting in here?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think he played on a World Series team for the Diamondbacks. He, as obviously Garver, played in the same World Series, ironically enough. I like his approach. I think his approach is a little more all field, and I think he's maybe a better pure hitter than Garver is. He's also a very good defender and quite athletic. And so when I look at free agents, I mean, there's a case to be made that for the right team in the right situation, that they might almost rather have Walker than Pete Alonso. And to be honest with you, the Mariners strike me as one of those teams. I don't know that I'd recommend that they go 6 or 7 years for Alonso if they feel as though they can get Walker for 3 or 4 years. Is Alonso a better slugger than Walker? Yeah, he is. But Walker is more athletic. He's not going to cost you as much in either years or dollars. And that, to me, would be a smart play. And I think that's, honestly, it's a fair expectation for Mariner fans to have for the front office. You don't necessarily have to win the bidding for a Soto or an Alonso, but get into the conversation, find a way to win the bidding for Christian Walker. He's already, of course, he's played on the West Coast with the Diamondbacks, so even though he's from the East Coast and the Philly area, he's got, certainly a lot of experience playing west of the Rockies. So I think for a number of reasons, I would look to Christian Walker as being a player who's a little easier to project than what Mitch Garver was. I think he's a better all-around player, honestly. And I think he'll get a bigger contract than what Garver got. But I think it's one that the Mariners, when you consider how inexpensive their pitching has been, the one they can handle. But they also, remember, they're also going to have to work on their bullpen a little bit too. They typically do. And Jerry Nipoto's done a pretty good job of that. But that is one more part of the club that they have to work on. And, hey, old friend Paul Sewald out there in free agency as well.